The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, my clock is reading 2 p.m. ET, but I'm going to go ahead and give 2 more minutes to any latecomers who still need to arrive. So again, if you are already here, please hang on for about 1 or 2 more minutes while we wait for any latecomers. Thank you. Hello everyone, welcome to our webinar, Enhancing Account Security with Biometrics. My name is Summer Becker, I'm the training lead here at ProcessMaker, and today we have a very special guest, Deepo Majekodunmi, who is the Managing Director of Dipole Diamond Limited. So today, Deepo is going to be talking about how ProcessMaker has worked together with biometric software to enhance account security. So we're going to be having that interview right after I go over the introduction. Before I get to the introduction, I do want to tell you at this time that you are free to submit any questions that you have throughout the webinar. And at the end of the webinar, we're going to have a question and answer session to get to some of your questions. So part of the topic that we're going to be talking about today are security threats that banks are currently facing. So 3 of the main security threats that Deepo is going to cover in the interview today are fraud and cyber fraud, default, and competition for technical talent. Now, these security risks have a direct correlation with the advancement of banking software that's currently happening in the market right now. So the results of that is being able to fight these security threats with advanced technology such as biometrics and BPM platforms like ProcessMaker. So first of all, what are biometrics? I think most of us are now familiar with biometrics by now, but just to clarify, biometrics can include fingerprint recognition, face recognition, voice recognition, or iris recognition. Just basically any type of personal characteristic that can be used to identify someone uniquely. So then another part of the interview that Deepo is going to cover is how biometrics are currently being used in banks within his market. So some of the use cases of biometrics in banking include account opening, such as someone giving their fingerprints when they open a bank account. So then further transactions with their bank account can be verified through their fingerprints. This technology can also be used at ATMs for ATM withdrawals. Of course, other various account activities can also be verified through biometrics. Another example includes voice authentication for phone services, access to mobile applications, and access to customer information. Okay, that includes my introduction. So let's go ahead and start the interview with Deepo. First question.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Okay. My name is Tipo Majakudumi, and I lead the team at Dipole Diamond. We're an edit partner for ProcessMaker here in Nigeria, West Africa, and we primarily work with clients in the financial services industry. We've been in operation for over 4 years now, and we offer solutions along business process management, robotic process automation, and software development and integration.
All right, and tell us a little bit about the market that your customers are in.
Yeah, so our customers primarily are in the financial services industry. We have about more than 80% of our customers belong to the financial services industry, specifically banking and finance. We have one insurance customer, but majority of them are banks. And the target market for us, or the primary market for us presently is Nigeria, and we are also extending into Eastern and Western Africa.
All right, and then so what trends in your market are currently having the most impact?
So I think especially for banking in this region, banking has traditionally been at the forefront of technology, and we're beginning to see more banks and financial institutions adopt technology. And you can imagine one of the major trends now is everyone wants to be seen as a fintech organization, not just a traditional bank. And one of the things that has come with the increasing trend in fintech is that a lot of banks have had to automate and digitize their processes, and also starting from the point of acquisition of customers all the way through things like loan origination, service delivery. And another trend is I also see in the market is the need more of the banks are also trying to get into the consumer finance segment of the market. It's traditionally been viewed as risky because one of the main challenges that the banks have is identifying customers, especially across multiple organizations. And one of the things that we've seen happen recently, especially in the Nigerian market, is the introduction of a biometric verification number, which is called a BVN here in Nigeria. And we are seeing similar trends emerge across other markets, whereby the banks are looking to have biometric solutions to uniquely identify the customers. So this by being able to uniquely identify a person using biometrics, irrespective of the name or whatever name a person opens account with in another bank, as the banks begin to synergize in sharing this data in the central store, they're able to mitigate risks such as fraud or bad loans across multiple banks.
All right, so it sounds like fraud is one of the challenges that your customers are facing related to security. What other challenges are your customers facing that are security related?
Like you said, fraud is one of the highest security risks for a bank. And the other one is also the risk of default, which is one of the major risks for a bank in terms of credit risk. The risk that a customer would borrow money and refuse to pay, even though he or she has the ability to pay back. And there's also the fraud. There's also fraud, which especially cyber fraud, which is also on the increase as you begin to have. As the banks try to digitize the processes, they also expose themselves to cyber attacks from criminals also. So those are some of the those are two of the primary risks that really comes to mind in terms of challenges that the banks face. I think another challenge that I also see emerging in this market is a competition for talent in technology, which also has a security implication in the fact that if you don't have solid talent in building the solutions that you're deploying to your consumers, and you expose vulnerabilities that can also be exploited.
All right, so then what are common ways that banks in your market are currently solving the security challenges that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so for one of the main, one way I see them resolving the issues presently is collaborating. Traditionally, banks tend to operate independent of each other, but one of the things that we're seeing emerge in the market is more and more collaboration between banks, and mostly driven maybe probably by the central bank, or here in Nigeria we have an interbank settlement organization that also drives that collaboration. And one of the things that they're trying to do, especially in the area of credit risk, is to be able to uniquely identify customer across organizations. The proposal currently in place right now to allow a bank to recover its funds from a customer from another bank. So in terms of credit risk, that's one of the ways that the bank is mitigating that. In terms of security, of cybersecurity and fraud, one of the solutions we've seen also is the adoption of biometrics. And so especially for transactions where the customer walks into the bank physically, by using biometric verification as opposed to traditional signatures, you're able to uniquely verify that the customer in front of you is the actual owner of the account. And thereby you mitigate frauds that comes, especially frauds that are done through impersonation of the customer or signatory to an account.
All right, so now you're touching on that customers are starting to use biometrics to resolve their security issues. So then how does ProcessMaker and biometrics work together to help customers face the challenges that you mentioned before with security?
So I think biometric is becoming critical to banking today as we know it. And for most banks, the journey begins at the point of account opening. And one of the things we've seen in previous years is banks moving their account opening processes to workflow platforms such as ProcessMaker. And we've been able to help a couple of banks with their account opening process in that regard. And by moving the account opening process onto ProcessMaker, the bank is able to ensure faster service delivery and ensure an automated end-to-end process from the moment the customer requests for an account and all of the verifications that needs to happen as part of the account opening process. But now, as we now see the trend shift also to including biometrics in that, one of the value add that we can bring to our customers through ProcessMaker is the ability to also embed that biometric capture as part of the account opening process. So even though the bank has invested resources in deploying a biometric solution, rather than have a customer complete the account opening process, then come back for biometric capture, you could, by embedding the biometric capture as part of the account opening process, right from the moment the relationship with the bank starts, the bank also has the biometric details of that customer. And that can then be deployed to other solutions such as biometric ATMs or biometric verification at the teller points in the branches.
All right, and then so you've already mentioned that biometrics and ProcessMaker have helped your customers deliver faster service and increase some of those security challenges that you've mentioned before. But what are some more of the top benefits that banks see from using biometrics with workflow software like ProcessMaker?
So I think one of the top benefits that also come is improvement in service delivery. By using biometrics, you eliminate the multiple layers of verification that needs to happen when a customer is transacting with the bank. So for the tellers or cashiers at the point of transaction, we are able to delegate more responsibility to them in terms of transaction processing. Another benefit for that is that the bank is also able to offer new solutions. So I believe we are still in the early stages of biometrics, but one of the things that I foresee that would happen in the coming years is that the banks will begin to develop new products that take advantage of the biometric verification. One of such new product offering are the cardless withdrawals using biometric at ATMs. So we're beginning to see more banks deploy biometric ATMs, which means that customers no longer have to carry their debit cards around just to make a transaction. We also see some of the mobile solutions from the bank being integrated with fingerprint recognition on the mobile devices, which I believe can also further be extended to integrate with the bank's IDMS, identity management systems, in the near future. This allows the bank to release more credit solutions or more products, credit products to their customers, and while being confident that the risk of fraud or impersonation has been mitigated.
All right, so you were talking about banks being able to use biometrics as part of ATM, so customers don't have to carry around their wallets and some other technological advances. So what do these advances and other benefits of biometric, how do those give your banking customers edge over their competition?
Well, I think in banking, perception is one of the strongest points. It's something that a lot of banks try to manage, and it's critical for most banks to be seen as being innovative and on the cutting edge of technological innovation, especially in the banking industry. And one of the benefits I see is also that banks that adopt this technology and release these innovative products that are built on biometrics and other technologies are able to attract millennials, because we're beginning to have a new generation entering the workforce that technology driven. They don't want to come to the banking, or they want the experiences in the banking all to be smooth, to be fast. They want the same kind of experiences they have on their consumer apps in the banking, with the apps that they use for banking. So by being able to deploy biometric solutions and position your brand as position the bank as a brand that is on the cutting edge of innovation and technology, banks are able to also attract this new emerging set of customers, and so that's I think that's the first one. And also from the point of another benefit that the banks would get from this about the competition is that they're able to release. They're able to reduce their risk in terms of credit risk, because they're now more confident of identifying the customers and preventing fraud and other risks that needs to be mitigated when giving out credits to customers. So by being able to reduce their risk, by being able to mitigate the risk in terms of the credit products for the consumer market, they're able to price their loans better. And by reducing the price points, they're also able to gain a larger share of the market. So if I'm confident that they're able to increase the percentage of repayment on the credits I give out, that allows me to reduce the rate or the premium I'm charging on each of these loans. And that way, I'm also able to offer more competitive pricing that attracts more customers to do business with me, as opposed to going with my competitors.
All right, that wraps up the questions that I have for you today. This was really, really interesting information about biometrics and workflow software and how that allowed your customers to deliver better service and reduce their security risks through the combination of biometrics and ProcessMaker. Do you have any last comments before we end our time together?
Yeah, I think it's been an interesting conversation. And in closing, I'd like to just say that I think one of the things that we're seeing with ProcessMaker, especially in the banking industry, is that it's also preparing banks for the other technologies that are beginning to come mainstream, technologies such as machine learning and AI. And one of the things I tell people when they ask me, really, what's the point in deploying a BPM solution? Why can't we just do things the way we do them? I believe that by moving all your processes to a platform such as ProcessMaker allows you to digitize that process and generate historical data, which forms the ingredients or the inputs into the algorithms and whatever deep learning that artificial intelligence is bringing in the near future. So by being able to digitize your processes right now, you begin to have that repository of data that you can then use to train these algorithms in the near future and position yourself as when artificial intelligence goes mainstream, you're able to improve your process and become a more efficient organization because you already have data in the digital format.
Great. Thank you again so much, Deepo, for your time today. Again, this was really great content. So again, thank you.
Thank you so much.
The first key takeaway that we have is that ProcessMaker is able to prepare banks for other technology because of its ability to easily integrate with third-party platforms that offer technologies such as AI and machine learning, making it a much more robust platform to be able to interact with other systems to increase security. Another key takeaway is that moving processes to a workflow platform allows banks to digitize processes and generate historical data. And then leading off of that is that this data, the historical data from digitizing processes, can then be used to train algorithms and help banks more quickly adapt to changing patterns in their markets. So summing it all up, Biometrics is helpful for mitigating risks such as fraud because of its ability to uniquely identify each customer at certain touch points during their customer journey, and also by embedding biometrics into a BPM platform, such as through the customer onboarding process. Customer data only needs to be collected one time for use at multiple touch points, which saves banks a lot of time because they no longer need to collect customer data every time the customer makes a transaction with the bank. Only one time does that data need to be collected to continue to verify each transaction thereafter. And then finally, by adapting new tech and increasing security through biometrics and workflow automation, banks can deliver new products and attract new customers. So BPM platforms like ProcessMaker, by being able to easily integrate with other new technologies, it helps banks deliver new experiences through new technologies, therefore adapting new customers. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the question and answer session at this point. So you can feel free to use the questions panel in the GoToWebinar toolbox to submit your questions. So again, you can feel free to submit your questions at this time, and then we'll be answering the questions for you. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hi, Deepo. Thanks for joining us for these questions.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here also. So I think I can see the first question here is from Omar. The question says, what is the method to integrate biometric with ProcessMaker? Is it with SAML authentication? For the use case that we had with the client, we have a biometric plugin, which was used to integrate with ProcessMaker at the point of the account opening process. And so we had the bank already had an identity management system implemented in the bank for biometrics, but that was independent of ProcessMaker and account opening process as a whole. And because the bank had moved the account opening process to an online platform apart, which was distinct from the manual process, what we had was a biometrics plugin that, as a part of the account opening process, allowed you to just capture the customer's fingerprints at the same time that the information was being captured. And then all that data being captured was connected, was being pushed into the identity management system using the biometric plugin that was developed for ProcessMaker. I hope that answers the question. And the second question says, what method did you use to connect ProcessMaker to the biometric system? Yeah, so like I mentioned, we had a plugin so the biometric system basically had a web service endpoint, and the data format. So when the biometric information is captured, the bank required that the biometric the fingerprint image be stored in a WSQ format. So WSQ is a proprietary format used by the FBI, and one of the challenges in the implementation was getting the image, the raw data from the fingerprint scanning devices to convert that into WSQ. And one of the benefits of using WSQ as opposed to maybe TIFF or JPEG is that you can store very high quality fingerprint data at a very low file size. So you're able to compress the size of the data that is captured. However, the quality of the fingerprint is very high, which makes future use, such as verifying future fingerprint scans, accurate. Okay, so I'll move to the next question. It says, at what point is the customer data collected? So traditionally, before the implementation, customer data was captured independently of the account opening process. So I could have opened an account by filling out the paper form. And then if I needed to use a biometric product, or if I was enrolled in a program whereby a biometric identification was required, I'd have to go to a branch physically for biometric capture. However, by digitizing the entire process at the point of onboarding the customer, the very point where the customer gets an account number, at that same point is where the biometric details is captured. So the same interaction with the customer, where the customer provides his or her first name, identification documents, and other information. We also capture the biometric, the fingerprint, and the picture of the customer. So it says, are there known plugins to address specific hardware, or what type of hardware are you using? So for this implementation, we are using Photronics hardware. But one of the challenges I think this question is probably trying to address is the fact that ProcessMaker is a web-based application, and most biometric fingerprint scanning devices are SDK-driven. So that means it's best developed as a desktop application and not over the web. So for the particular implementation in question here, we're using Photronics F50. And for the Photronics, what we did with the plugin is that we're able to spin up a local web server that is installed alongside on the customer, on the officer capturing the information, and that creates like a tunnel between the device that is connected to that system and the biometric plugin, which is on the ProcessMaker server. So that way, when the web page loads, the web application makes a connection request to check if a device is actually connected to the PC displaying the web page. And then once that connection is established, we are able to then transmit data from the device to the web service, the backend on ProcessMaker. To answer the second question, which says, is it targeted at a specific hardware? The plugin is targeted at a specific hardware, but can be extended to other hardware. Once the SDK for any new hardware is provided, we basically just add it as one of the to the plugin, so that to the client component of the plugin, so that it's able to recognize the device. But as a whole, the essential component of capturing the data, displaying the captured fingerprint image to the user to verify, and then uploading that data to the server. Already, it would work for multiple devices. However, there's a need to customize the plugin for new hardware devices. The plan in the long run is to extend the plugin to work with most commonly used devices. That will probably be QGen and other related, very popular biometric capture devices. Moving to the next question. It says, what other platforms have you connected to ProcessMaker to help banks extend their services? So one of the most common requirements to get from banks is two-factor authentication. Especially here in Africa, we have a lot of banks that use hardware token devices or soft token devices as a method of two-factor authentication. So one of the connections is we do a lot for banks is enabling 2FA on ProcessMaker using the Entrust service, which is quite popular. So connecting to Entrust services for two-factor authentication is a common requirement. We also integrate a lot with the bank's core banking applications, which you can think of as the basically like the ERP or the accounting system for the banks. So a lot of transactions with clients, we're able to do things like straight-through processing, so things like funds transfer. We've done integrations with Swift messaging also. So for foreign funds transfer, whereby we need to transfer funds from the bank to another bank. So generating the Swift messages and dropping that on the Swift server. We also do integration with other services, other applications within the organization. So beyond the core banking, we have integrations with other systems that the banks use that probably serve as source of information, things like the treasury rates, service to fetch rates for transactions that require that are done in other currencies. So I think one of the benefits or one of the benefits ProcessMaker brings is the flexibility. As long as you have a system that has an API, whether it's a REST API or SOAP service, we're pretty much able to integrate with ProcessMaker is pretty much able to integrate to address whatever challenge the bank might have at that point in time. Okay, thanks. So the next one says, can you use the finger sensor of smartphones with this biometric plugin? At the moment, that is not possible. But I think one of the reasons for that is, well, we've not explored that, but I think part of the challenges there will be the fact that for the plugin, the SDKs require us to spin up a local, like a local host server on the client device, and that is not currently something that we're able to do on mobile. But I think as the use cases or requirements come up, those are the things that we would possibly explore to see how we can address those kind of use cases for clients that might require them. Okay, so next question here says, what would you say to banks looking to introduce biometrics in their system? How can they best prepare on the IT side and also among their non-technical stakeholders? So for banks looking to introduce biometrics in the system, I think it's very important to have a clear idea of what they're trying to achieve with biometrics, and not just do it just for the sake of doing it. That allows the banks to put together a clear roadmap, and then so some of the provisions that they need to put in place in advance is infrastructure. So considerations for things like an identity management system, and then when the biometric and also looking at their current onboarding. So if I introduce biometric into a bank where there are already existing customers, some of the considerations that also need to be put in place is how do I get the biometric data of customers that are already doing business with me today, that I do not have their biometric information. So things like onboarding existing customers onto the biometric platform, and then also moving the onboarding processes such as account opening to include biometrics. So from the moment when a bank thinks the biometric might be an option, it's the sooner they're able to add biometric to their onboarding process, even though they do not yet have use cases in terms of products that leverage that, that reduces the backlog of the number of customers that would have to be onboarded when the products and use cases are found. For non-technical stakeholders, I think one of the main things that is really required is user education, helping them to understand the benefits in terms of security and identification. And also things like so benefits like also being able to do things like to avoid the risk of transaction repudiation, whereby a customer claims that a transaction was not done by them, especially for walk-in transactions into the bank or on channels that like ATMs where biometric can be enabled. And then from IT, one of the key things also is I'd also recommend is investing in the training of the technical team. We've seen a lot of success whereby customers are able to develop in-house capabilities. A lot of initiatives like biometrics tend to stall or die because there's no in-house capability in terms of the skills. So even though you're leveraging a platform like ProcessMaker and working together with a partner like ProcessMaker to onboard customers using biometrics, it also helps on the client side to invest in training the people internally on the technology that on the biometric in terms of the hardware, whatever hardware they're using, and the IDMS where the data resides. So that once the capture is done at the point of onboarding, you're able to also be able to you're able to roll out new products that leverage that that data. So even though you have customers' biometric data in an identity management system, you should be able to build products that leverage that identity management system to deliver value to clients. Another thing that is critical is also to understand and from an hardware point of view, which addresses IT also, the type of devices that you want to use. If the capture is going to be done in branch, it needs to be something that is unobtrusive and can fit directly into the workspace or the workflows of the officers at the branch capturing the customer data.
All right, I think that wraps up the question and answer session. Deepo, thank you again so much for your time interviewing and answering the questions.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yes. And then, so for the audience, thank you for attending. If you have additional questions, you can feel free to email us at info@processmaker.com or visit our website, www.processmaker.com. And we hope to see you for our next webinar. Thank you.